What's up guys, Pop-Up11 here. Today I'm going to be showing you a weapon making tutorial for Blade and Sorcery U10, start to finish. So let's get started. First off, what we're going to want to do is download Unity Hub. So if we just type in Unity download, click on this first link right here, then click download Unity Hub. After you've downloaded it, you're going to want to place it wherever you like. In my case, I have everything Blade and Sorcery related on my D drive. After downloading this, you're going to want to download the specific Unity version, because if we go to the Unity installs, what we need is 2020.3.20 F1. Now, if we try to add it, notice the exact one that we need does not show up. So what we're going to have to do is go to Unity Download Archive. Click the first link. Once we're here, we're going to want to go to 2020, and we're looking for 2020.3.20. Okay. Now we click this, it will automatically open up in Unity Hub. If you have Unity Hub open, it will ask you to install, you install it. After installing this, what you're going to want to do is download the SDK so you can actually start making the mods. So if we just type in Blade and Sorcery SDK, click on the first link in GitHub, here we are. We're going to want to make sure that we're at the right one. So if we go to branches, see the active branch, what we want is next update. What we do, go to code, download zip, and after it downloads, what you want to do is place it into another place. So again, I place mine right here in my D drive. After that is there, what you're going to want to do is, after you've installed the Unity version and you've installed Unity Hub, you're going to want to go to projects, add, wherever you placed the Unity next update, you click on this and then you select the folder. After that's done, you want to click on the Unity version because it's going to be blank. Click on it and you select 2020.3.20 F1. After that's done, you click on whichever one of these you want. So in our case, it's Blade and Sorcery -next update. Now it's on to making the weapon. Alright guys, after we have Unity open, what we're going to want to do is download a model. So in our case, we can go to one of the most popular sites, which is Sketchfab. Click on the first link. Sketchfab is great because it has a lot of free weapon models. So in our case, I already found a model that I want, so I'm going to type in golden sword. You can type in whatever you want. Now notice there's a lot of downloadable models. There's models without any downloads. You can tell by this. And if we scroll down just a little bit, if there's a $sign icon, you can actually purchase a model for money. But what we're going to want to do is select downloadable, so any models that can be downloaded. And I'm going to sort by most recent because I know the model that I want is right here, this golden sword. We're going to open it up, scroll down, click download 3D model. Download. Okay, after your model is downloaded, what you're going to want to do is open up Unity, find wherever your model downloaded. In my case, I know that the model is right here, golden sword. What I'm going to do is just plop it on my desktop for a second. Okay, now that we're here, what we're going to want to do is actually find a place for it. So once you're in Unity, I already have a specific place, but if you right click, you go to create a new folder, and you can create a new weapon folder called new weapon. This can be for all of your new weapons or whatever you like. So now that we have this open, we drag in our source and textures. All right, now that we have our weapon in Unity, all we need to do is drag it in. And here we go. This is our blank sword, no textures, no nothing. So what we need to do is right click, go to prefab, unpack, and then so we can start working on the weapon. Now let's set up our textures. So if we right click, go to create material, name it something like matte or material, whatever you like. Set the render to both, so it's not only facing on the front or the back. It just depends based on the weapon model sometimes. Now what we need to do is include our textures. So we have our albedo, which is the same as our base, AO, occlusion, emission, which is the brightness of it. In our case, we want to imbue the weapon. Metallic, the shininess. Normal, the grooves and stuff that make it look more realistic. Base, occlusion. We scroll down. We add in our emission. We have to check the box first. Now, in game, what we're going to need to do is set it to 1, 1, 1 with our intensity at 0. This will allow the weapon to have imbue in the game and for the weapon to not look different based on the emission in Unity. After doing that, drag in our metallic map and then our normal. If it asks you to fix it, all you have to do is click fix. Once we're done, we right click, we convert it to MOES. After all those textures are on, then it converts to MOES. We want to do this because it saves up space. Now we can also remove the emission map because it's not necessary, because it's included in our MOES texture. Okay, and if we just drag it onto our weapon, this is what it looks like. Beautiful. There's a nice bit of shine too. If you want to change that, since the metallic was baked into the MOES, all you gotta do is just play with the smoothness a little bit. And I like that. Okay, now just to make sure that the emission is working, if we drag it, we go up, we see that the emission works like that. So remember, 1, 1, 1. Alright guys, now we're gonna make it compatible for in-game. So what we're gonna do is right click, create empty, name it something like my sword to start. Make sure that the position and rotation are all set to 0 and the scale is set to 1. For the model, same thing. So let's drag it under my sword. Alright guys, after setting this up, what we're going to want to do is make sure that we are in our assets folder, and we're going to want to go to examples, weapons, and let's drag in our common axe. Now we're doing this because we want to size up our weapon. So this one is currently enormous compared to the axe. So what we're going to want to do is with our model, we can scale it based on whatever axis we want. We can make it skinnier, fatter, whatever. Or if while we're in this or in our scaling, what we can do is actually just shrink it and move everything all together, which is great. Now what I'd recommend is lining up the handle with the handle. So if we shrink this, this looks to be a good sized weapon now. After doing that, what we're going to want to do is go to add component, select item. Okay, after selecting this, what we're going to want to do is change our item ID, name it my sword, have it be the exact same. Click on our holder point, and this is how our weapon is holstered on our character and on the weapon rack. So we want our blue arrow to be facing up either towards the point or the other way. In our case, let's just set it to 90, drag it down, perfect. Parry point, what we need to do is add component, name it parry target. And with this, we're just going to have the length be of the blade. So if we turn it again, and we increase it to, let's say, 0.35, that looks to be about right. Perfect. And then our preview how our weapon looks in our book. So this is the icon. So what we're going to need to do is rotate it again. So if we change it to like -90, notice that it's flat like this. And we set this to 45 and shrink it just a little bit. That is perfect, exactly what we want. Next up, time to make colliders. So if we right click, create an empty, shout out to Drags for the name, collider blade. This is going to hold all of our blade colliders. So the colliders that do the piercing and slashing. So if we just type in collider group, this will hold everything. Right click, name it whatever you like. We're going to be using our box colliders or capsules. So again, if you type in collider, these will show up. Box collider is colliders that you can move. It starts off in the shape of a cube. It's moldable in any way. Or capsule colliders, which is a sphere that can be moved, and this is especially great for handles. So what we're going to need to do first is box colliders. So all you really need to do, since this is pretty easy, is just line it up with our weapon. And since this is actually what we touch in game, we don't touch the model of the weapon itself. We touch the colliders, because the colliders is what allows us to act with the physics. With that being said, we need to go to material and select either blade, or if you want to type it in, blade, you click blade. We select blade because blade is the actual damager for piercing and slashing metal weapons. So if we click on our collider group again and we do Control D, it will actually copy and paste it. And let's change it to collider blunt, so that now we can work on our blunt damagers. Now these are a little bit different than the blade, only because if we right click and we create a new one, what we're going to be doing are using capsule colliders for this and changing our material to metal, because metal, while it's metal just like the blade, is used for the blunt damagers. So if we move this over, we can rotate it again. And for our intents and purposes, this is perfect for a handle. So after we've done that, of course, do Control S, make sure to save, and now we can set up our piercing damagers. So if we right click, create another empty, and name this exactly Pierce, go to Add Component, type in Damager. Okay, here we go. Now, since we've already made our collider blade, we drag that collider group on. Again, you just grab the game object to pull it over. We need to set our direction to forward, because we only want it to point one way with the pierce. And we need to change our depth to something like 0.3. Notice, again, just like the parry line, we have this yellow line right here, which is used for our pierce. Make sure that the blue arrow is pointed towards the blade. So if we turn it like this, and drag it to the very end, recommend lining up at the bottom of that line right there. If we pull it out, it's not long enough yet, so of course if you do Control Z, it'll put it back. And let's set it to something like 0.7. And I think that's perfect. Now we've set this up, what we need to do is set up our slash damager. So if we do Control D again, and we rename this slash. The collider group is already added, so what we need to do is, since it's going to be slashing forwards and backwards one way, we can add our length of 0.7 as well, and then changing our depth to 0.001, or something very small, because we don't want this to necessarily cut into people. We want the blue arrow to be now on the sides of the weapon. So if we drag this down, this looks to be about right, and now all of the blade will now cut and pierce enemies. And finally, if we do Control D one last time and rename it Blunt, what we're going to want to do is drag in our collider blade to the group and change this to all, set this to 0 and 0. Now it's set up for blunt damage. And for the last main part of the weapon, we need to create the handle. So if we type in handle and we add in a handle component. Here we go. So what we need to do is scroll down and we need to actually add orientation. So if it's like this, you just click on the arrow. And what we need to do is create 4 of them. Leave the first one at 0, the second one 180, third 180 here, and then fourth 180. So now we can hold it in every direction possible. What we need to do after doing this is set both of these to both, so they can be used on either hand. Calculate reach. It's not at 1, so let's just type in 1. Let's make sure it's set to 1 always, and update new orientations. You'll know this works if your handle now has these added to it. Perfect. What we need to do is make sure that the blue arrow is pointed to where we want our hands to be, and that the green arrow is pointed towards the top of the blade. So if we turn this, our Z is at 90. What we need to do is drag this down, and here we go. Since the blue arrow is pointing this way, our hands will start off like this in game. So this is essentially how our hand will start off on the weapon. Perfect. And that looks good enough, but if you want to make your weapon two-handed, all you need to do is increase the axis length. So if I created 0.001, any number above 1 will allow it to be two-handed. So in this case, it'll have both hands be on top of each other. But if we changed it to something like 0.1, that's a little bit much. Let's do 0.05. Now our weapon can move up and down and slide on the handle, which is exactly what we want. Now what we can do is if we click on this, we create an empty, name it whatever you like, but I always name it my fly ref. All you got to do is have the blue arrow pointed towards this tip of the sword. So if we set this to -90, drag it up. When you throw your weapon, it can go towards this point. And then what we can do, so our weapon makes whooshing noises as you swing it. We create a whoosh, and we add in our whoosh component. Just leave this as normal. So if we go to our weapon, scroll down, we add in our fly ref to fly ref, make sure our handle is on handle, preview, parry point, everything is good. Now that we've added our fly ref and our whoosh, what we can do now is go into our collider blade and actually generate the imbue. So what we can do is, let's say we shrink our colliders like this. If we generate the imbue mesh, we'll only have the imbued particles around this. But as you guys know, that is not what we want. We want our imbued particles to be around the entire weapon. So what we can do is generate this and go to it, turn off the mesh render so the imbued particles will be around it, but the pink will not show up in game. Next, what we can do is in the imbue emission renderer, we add in the part of the model that is going to get imbued. In our case, it's one entire model. So we drag in the whole model. We don't need to worry about imbue shoot for this video, and then for the whoosh point, so it's more accurate, all we do is we just drag in the whoosh, and there we are. Now our weapon is game ready. One thing we can also do is make it so it can actually get bloody. To do this, what we can do is if we click back on Assets, Examples, Decal, and here we are. And here is our reveal material, which actually lets blood show up. Now you can remove all of these textures right here, but make sure to keep these two, remove this one, keep these two. This will be the normal of whatever your weapon is. So one thing you can do is if we scroll up, click on this, we can actually save it as a preset. So if we want to go back to our weapon, if we click on our reveal preset, I already removed these textures. Kept these three blood, removed the normal, and kept these two. What we need to do is make sure that our reveal layer is set to 0, and now we add in our textures. So it's essentially what it was before, even though it removed all of these. So we add in our base map, our normal, and our MOES. We scroll all the way down, and we add in our normal again, normal for the specific weapon. Now it is ready to be set up. So after this is done, we need to create a prefab of it. So what we do is simply drag in this, our project. We click on this drop down, we go to preview, and we generate the icon. That's looking good to me. Now what we need to do is open up the addressable window. So we click on Window, Asset Management, Addressables, Groups. And here we are. So if we drag it in, yours will be empty, but mine isn't because I've made mods. We click on Create, Group, Packed Assets. You can name this whatever you like. In my case, I'm just going to name it My Amazing Sword. Make sure to right click on it and set this as default. After setting it to default, what we're going to need to do is put our weapon back into it. So what we're going to do is click on both of these and drag them in. You can right click and you can name them individually, or what you can do is click on both, shift or control click, right click, simplify addressable names, it will name them whatever is here. And then after selecting both of these, you go to Assets, Addressable Rename Wizard. You can name this whatever you like and it will rename all of those that you have selected. So in my case, PyPop 101s because I am PyPop 101. After naming these, what you want to do is select label. After you select it, it'll look like this. You click Manage Labels, you hit the plus, and you want to name it exactly Windows, exactly like this, because it's necessary for building your weapons now. After typing that in, what you want to do is select Windows for everything under your addressable group. After adding both of these in, our final step is to add in a material that will allow blood to show up on your weapon. So we currently have this right here. What we need to do is create another material under the Thunder Road Lit shader and scroll all the way down this empty shader, keep it empty until we have the reveal layers and type in 1. It needs to be set to 1. After that's in there, all you need to do is drag in your material. And I can name this My sword. Reveal. And perfect. Now our weapon will go in game. It will be able to imbue. It will have blood on it. It will look great. Now we need to build it. So if we go to Thunder Road SDK, mod builder. Note, if you guys try to open up the mod builder and it's not working, there is going to be a file to download in the description. You download that, and then you're going to want to drop it in and drag it into SDK right here. And it will be called mod profiles. And this is what you're going to be putting in here. After you do that, you go to this right here, click on default. Then if you go to Thunder Road SDK, mod builder, it will open up. Drag it in. Make sure that the only thing checked off is whatever you just wanted to export. So in my case, my sword. Once you're here, you want to make sure to click on the game folder directory and wherever you have the Blade and Sorcery folder. So me, it's data, Steam, Steam apps, common, Blade and Sorcery, select folder. It needs to be like this. Build and export, and it will have this error, which is not an issue. So if we go to it, we see my sword, and we'll see the catalog and our assets. 7.3 megabytes, which is not bad at all. So now what we need to do is actually create our JSONs so we can get the sword in game. So if we go to our streaming assets, default, what we need to do is go to bas.jsondb. So if we copy it, we go to mods. I named mine _JSONs. You can name it whatever you like. I put the underscore because it allows it to be in the mods folder and not show up in game. But in our case, let's just name it JSONs. You copy and paste this in. And what we want to do is go to View, File Name Extensions. What we're going to need to do is change the JSON DB to ZIP. Yes. Here we go. Double click on it to open it. Now you have all these. Copy them all, and you can paste them in your JSONs folder. Now that we have all of our JSONs, we can go to Items, scroll all the way down. I like using the common dagger JSON. So if we go back to our amazing sword, paste this in, name it. So I named it my sword, so I will name it my sword. Now what we need to do is open this up. So if we right click on it, open with Notepad. If it's not there, it will either show up here or under more apps. So once we're in here, we want to name it my sword. Keep both of these names the same, and the display name is what name it will show up in our category. So I will name it my sword. My description is something extremely amazing. I am obviously PyPop 101. We want it to be purchasable, and our category path, since it's a sword, we'll name it swords. So the icon is what we named it in our addressable group. So right here, we named it pypop101s.mysword.icon, and the prefab, which is the model itself that we created, which is pypop101s.mysword. I'd recommend setting slot to medium so it can be used both on your back holsters and your hip holsters. You can play around with the mass and the drag. Mass is how heavy the weapon is in game. Drag is how much difficulty there is swinging it. We want it to be thrown, so we keep this true. Keep it 3 and 145. Scroll down. What we need to do is name it exactly what we did in here. So in our case, we named it Collider Blade, and since we want to have imbue, it can be dagger, I guess, or in our case, sword. We named it Pierce / and blunt. Pierce. We don't need two of these, so we can remove that / and blunt. We can keep the damagers the same. And we add in our handle, which needs to be the name the exact same. Finally, we have our whoosh, which is just named whoosh. And that is how you set up all the JSONs, guys. So what we need to do, last but not least, is take a manifest JSON. So this can be taken from any one of the mods that you know and that you've downloaded. So if we just copy it from one of those, we paste it in. If you don't have a manifest, it will not show up in game. So this is my sword. We want it to spawn weapons, whatever. Description doesn't matter. All you need to do is make sure that that name is the exact same as this folder. But that is how you make a weapon for Blade and Sorcery Update 10, guys. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. Thanks for watching.